And we say good evening or good morning or good day to all of you. Welcome. This is the virtual Dalcroze meetup. I'm Stephen Neely. I'm your co-host. I'm here with my dear friend, a number of my dear friends actually, but my in the window to my right is my co-host Veronica Bolesky. And Veronica and I started these meetups 72 meetups ago. This is the 72nd meetup that we've had in about 4 years. And we're just thrilled to have nice people still showing up and no shortage of concepts around Dalcroze and Dalcroze pedagogy and teaching in the schools and teaching in the studios. And we're just happy to have everybody here. Our routines from almost from the beginning has been to take just 2 minutes to try to meet who else is here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quick breakout room. Just two. And I'm going to send you to the room. Everybody, we're going to be in the rooms for 2.5 minutes. It won't be very much time. It's very fast. And so once you get to the room, please, if you're willing, introduce yourself, tell everybody where you're from or where you're living and who do you teach or who might you teach or who do you work with or what do you do. But mostly we say our names, where we're at, and who we teach. I'm not going to go to a room, so I'll just tell you I'm Stephen Neely. I'm in Pittsburgh, and I teach university students at Carnegie Mellon. Ready, set, 2.5 minutes. Here you go.
I just want to say our group had perfect timing.
I expect nothing less from Veronica's group. Um, I'm sure that's how it went. It is so good to see everybody and welcome. What a nice group we have tonight. Before we get into the main events, our speakers and our sharing tonight, we just want to remind you that there are some upcoming meetups.
There's one left after tonight.
Thank you.
It's in early June, June 4th, Tuesday, June 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So that's our last one that's on the books, but don't worry, we're scheduling more for the rest of this calendar year. We just have to do our calendar long meeting.
Right. So we'll take a little break for the summer and we will come back in the early fall, probably late August after this June one. And we have a whole new roster of events and master classes and short courses and all sorts of things coming up. We have two master classes that we are still looking for this season. The masterclass with Fumiko Honda Bauer. Fumiko trained in Japan, grew up in Japan, lives in New York State. Fumiko, we needed to postpone her master class. She's going to be talking about working with the young kids, the little babies and the 1 year olds and that sort of community. We're really excited to feature her. She's a tremendous musician and she has this specialization that we know there's a lot of interest in. So stay tuned. As soon as we know the rescheduling, we will inform everybody. It could very well be later this spring or summer, but at some point Fumiko's coming back soon, and then definitely scheduled for June 15 or 16, depending on where you are in the world. Tamay Janai Deveau, who is a diplômé, from Geneva, Switzerland. Tamay is going to be teaching for us. I had the pleasure of taking one of her classes in Geneva this last summer. And it was so much fun, and she was so full of great energy, and she was so musical. And her masterclass is going to be playing with reggae rhythms. She's going to be working with Bob Marley music. She's got it's going to be great. She's very, very cool, and I'm really excited to introduce her to everyone. So if you haven't registered for Tamay's masterclass, please go to the virtualdalcroze.org and find the link and sign up for that one. It's going to be outstanding, I can promise you.
I'll do the
The
next one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been traditionally doing meetups on Mondays and Tuesdays, and we alternate between a 2 p.m. and a 9 p.m. on the East Coast. But we know that there's people who are like, I'm always teaching at 2, or I can never make the 9 p.m. or, even if it's in Asia, like it's 9 a.m. and I'm teaching. And so if you have any requests, um, we're just kind of going to see if we can switch up the schedule. So if you want to throw out like, hey, could you do a meetup on a Thursday in the middle of the day? That might be something that works better for me. We would love that feedback. You can send us a message here. You can tell us, you can email us, you can send me a private message here in the Zoom, like all the ways. Leave us a note on Facebook. So just please feel free to let us know what would
Yep,
be
we're super interested in, of course, all of you believing that it's convenient to come. We're also trying to think of ways to make it convenient for our friends all around the world. So from the very beginning, the BDM has been notably international. And so this time that's very late for Veronica and me, any of us on the East Coast, this is pretty late. It's intentional, knowing that this is middle of the day, other places around the world. And so the idea is just if we mix it up, maybe we can get some different faces. And that has totally worked some in the past, although I'm looking at the room right now and I think everybody's in North America.
We got one South America.
Oh, but that's right.
No, it's from Brazil.
That's right. I see you. We're not actually at this hour hitting our friends in the opposite time zones tonight. So if anyone has suggestions to that, we are all ears. But we're so happy to see you all. I'm going to hand it over to Veronica to introduce our speakers tonight.
I just realized maybe I should send a message to Sean.
Yeah.
So maybe can you introduce the topic and I'll just check in there?
Yep. So tonight we are talking about what in some cities are called preparatory programs, prep school programs, preparatory programs. These are extra. These are music classes or music academies that are usually outside of a public school or even a regular day private school, and quite often have a slightly more intensity than other ways. So, for instance, Anthony, we've invited Anthony Molinaro to talk about the work that he does at Carnegie Mellon's Saturday Preparatory School, and that program, the students start in the program proper around age 5, and they take group piano lessons, they take a 45-minute Eurythmics class, they take private lessons. They do that for 2.5 years with almost no days off. It's really quite intense all through the summer, only a couple weeks off for the holidays. And then they continue after that, dropping the group class, continuing with Eurythmics, continuing private lessons, and then getting theory and composition lessons and all kinds of electives. The whole idea is that it's a very focused kind of training. Sean Hartley, we're expecting to join us tonight, teaching at a very similar program in Manhattan, and we have Yoriko Richmond with us from San Francisco. And so we welcome our colleagues, and we're hoping you could tell us a little bit about how is it to teach in those settings. Anthony, I think you are first tonight.
All right, great. Yeah. So
I'll just jump in. I'll give you a 1-minute warning.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
thanks. Because I could talk all night. I'm long-winded. So as Stephen just sort of mentioned, I teach at the Preparatory Academy at Carnegie Mellon, which is I also teach in a public school, and I find the teaching very fulfilling in the Preparatory Academy setting. It's on Saturday mornings. It's a little different. The students it's self-selected. They sign up because their parents sign them up usually, or because they enjoy it. And I find that as a piece of a larger, sort of more intensive, curriculum, that Eurythmics brings a lot to the table. And I think that we find this a lot of the time in our settings is that, and I also want to talk about teaching at Interlochen in this context as well, because I teach at summers at Interlochen, which is a very, very intense music summer academy. And what I find time and time again is that the students feel so much freedom in Eurythmics in comparison to the very rigorous and regimented and often highly disciplined private lessons that they have. and the expectations put on them in a theory context. I really try to let Eurythmics be their space to be expressive, to find themselves and find their own voice as a musician, away from the instrument. And so there's a couple of ways that I try to do that. And we can talk about this more. And this is not necessarily a Dalcroze thing, but this is an Anthony thing. But one of my kind of pretty strict rules that I have for myself is I never use numbers in my teaching. And this is something that we could, you talk about a long time, but I really try to never use numbers, because I really am trying to access a different kind of musical cognition in the children. And I find that they're so accustomed to a very, pattern-based, counting system, and everything is all about these grids of time. And I really am trying to avoid that trap for them. I don't want this to be another class in which it's felt that they've got all this same way of thinking. I'm trying to expand and trying to reach the part of the musical brain that is purely expressive and not based on that. And so that's a little bit uncomfortable for the students at first. And I don't actually ever say we're not using numbers. I just never do. And I invite them to find different ways to approach the concepts rather than counting. So I even go so far as to say I won't even say a number for any reason, right? Like if it's like if it's two, if I say get in groups of two, I wouldn't say that because I don't want to say the number two. So I would say find a partner, or who's your neighbor, join your neighbor, let's play together. So this is something I actually really kind of encourage in these settings, because I find that in both at Interlochen and at Carnegie Mellon, the students, this is their beautiful place to express music and to play with music, right? Which they just often don't get to do in these very, these settings that are incredibly rigorous, where there's like a competitive aspect to what they're doing and a lot of pressure. Some of these students have a tremendous amount of pressure put on them. And so I find that my class becomes a sort of a respite to that for the children, a sanctuary for them to think about music in a slightly different way. And I love the opportunities that I have to do that. So another thing that I do often in these settings too is I will often invite children to bring in their pieces that they're playing and play for the class, and then use that as we'll find a little piece of that and work as a class to move to it, to come up with a plastique maybe, or to come up with maybe we're hearing something in the music that we'd like to try to work on. Maybe there's a particular tricky little passage, and so I'll invite the children to contribute as musicians in the class instead of just me on the piano all the time. This is a couple of functions. At Interlochen, it's interesting. Thank you. At Interlochen, it's interesting because I am not the best pianist in the room, like ever, when I teach there. I mean, there's some of those students are incredibly gifted pianists, and so I find it a great resource to bring those students into the fold and say, hey, play your piece and let's do it. And then in certain settings, we've done a whole concert where we've had the students play their pieces and we do plastique to the pieces, and it's a really effective way for them to have some ownership as well, and to make that integration and make that connection between what's going on in their studio and what we've been working on here. So those are the two sort of things that I've sort of innovated in over the years of working in these settings, is to really try to make it a sanctuary for just personal expression and to just let go of whatever it is, and then to use the music that the children are already leaning on to then apply this sort of same sense of joy and sense of creativity to. So that's the things I'd like to share about teaching in those settings.
Super.
Much. I think Sean let us know that he might have some internet problems, so I'm guessing that's probably why he's not able to be here. So we'll just go on to Yoriko, and if Sean can come later, we'll ask him to share. So Yoriko, if you could maybe speak just for an initial 5 minutes, I'll give you a 1 minute warning, and then we'll have a discussion. I'm sure we'll all have much more to
I
add.
have not much to say because I'm always short. So I teach at the San Francisco Conservatory Music, and now I actually just retired a couple of days ago.
Oh,
Yeah, for after 25 years of teaching there. And there's a program called Early Childhood Program. And then that's coupled with an instrument and the Dalgos. They made it, Dalgos are like a musicianship, help. So that was maybe 2 years ago, they started to have that. But before that, it was just Dalgos by itself. And then also I was able to have a chance to teach the college students and also pre-college students and ensembles, and because I've been teaching like a really long time. So what I was feeling that I have to support, that they can go on to do their instrument, better instrument player. So I geared toward that most likely musicianship. And so I forgot to tell you that I teach from age 4 years old and to 8 years old, like 5 classes back to back. And so that's why I'm really tired. And so what I'm trying to do is to get them, make sure they can dictate the rhythms and sing in solfege and play xylophone, which I brought this kind of xylophone. Yeah, this one actually I found. Actually, back to where I was studying at Geneva, Switzerland, and then I had my daughter with me, and she went to the Dalgos class while I was going to another class. So she had not this type, but the xylophone in the class. So and then I really found out that through the students' experiment, sorry, but they start to oh, I wanted to play this, and then one of the students of my class started to play the xylophone, and then wow, yeah, it is really effective, because if you get the rhythm, and then if you are able to move the rhythm and dictate the rhythm and be able to play on the instrument, and then the percussion is the best way to start, because there's no changing having the skills to play. So that's how I started to utilize this. And then also this is white and black, so it's good, leads into piano too. So that's what I was going to what I am doing it. And so I will use lots of percussion, like rhythm sticks, hand drums, triangle, castanets, bells, wood blocks, scarves, that's props, and scarves, bean bags, balls, ribbons, and the xylophone. Sometimes I see other teachers are using lot more props, but I try not to use too much, because so they can really listen rather than being involved with the props. Yeah. Just recently I found the effective one. I've been using this, but this is a ribbon, just like a gymnastic, ribbons, and I made it. So this is like that. So this will give you, give them a feeling of a length, because little kids doesn't want to have the long, they don't feel the length. So the change, the difference between the quarter note and the half note. Then I do it quarter note, and the half note, you have to make the big movement, in order to use the ribbon. So that's then I let them take the mallet and then do that same way with the xylophone. So then they can feel the length, so I think it's really getting effective for that. but somehow I don't have any other experimentation to place to do now. But yeah, but I actually incorporate the piano teaching using the close, method too. So that's all from me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, friends, we have two lovely presentations. What are our comments, thoughts, questions?
I'll just ask, Anthony, will you talk just a teeny bit more about the difference you've felt between these more specialized spaces and the public school setting? Because
Yeah.
you've spent a lot of time in both, and there are certainly just some obvious differences, but I don't know if you just maybe want to just talk about that just for a moment.
Yeah, sure. There's a huge difference in the public school is that that in many cases, this is the only opportunity that these children have to encounter music in any sort of material way. Maybe in some cases, the first time that they've encountered music in any sort of material way. And I always actually kind of assume that. I mean, even though there's a variety of students bring a variety of experiences into the room, I never assume that they've got any experience at all and that they're interested in music at all. And so I'm providing them in that case a more fundamental connection to music, or offering them an opportunity to figure out what this music thing is. And there's some more fundamental sort of considerations that you've got there, in terms of how you're going to guide them to those sort of discoveries about, wow, look what music can kind of do. But in these other settings, I'm definitely assuming they've got a connection to music at this point, right? I'm assuming that they have seen musical performances, that they've got music that they like and music that they don't like, and they've got music that they can connect to and music that they haven't been exposed to yet. And so it's just, you're just not really, you're able to sort of assume then that we have that baseline thing in common, that there is some semblance of music that I can assume. And so it just makes the intention quite different. A lot of times I'll do the same activities with the students that I do in the public school as I do in the music academy, but we just might have slightly different intention, and we might take it a different place. We might reflect on a different thing. They might be more interested in some more of the musical terminology, and they might be interested, whereas in the public school, maybe we're just really just trying to gain some sense of what it means to be musical at all. So, I feel like it's just, and then the kind of diversity you encounter in the public school in terms of that, is just staggering. So you've got just all ends of the spectrum, and so you just have a different, it just changes the calculus of that last step of what does this mean to you is different in both places, quite different. And I think that's probably the biggest difference. It's not so much that we do that. It's we do maybe slightly more difficult things. I'd probably say we're 1 or 2 grade levels advanced in the music academy. If I'm doing something with second grade in the public school, probably it's I could do that with the kindergartners in the music academy, the same activity, but not, but that's not really the most important difference to me. It's about what's it mean to them? What are they taking away from it? What's the purpose of it?
Super. Other questions for either of our presenters? I have more, but I don't want to monopolize. So who else has anything they want to be thinking about? Teo, who is a longtime friend at Carnegie Mellon and has come to a million BDMs, just typed in, let me know that Teo and her son Raphael took classes with Yuriko in San Francisco years ago. So that's a really fun connection. Joe.
I just want to know how Yuriko is going to be spending her retirement with all of her musical brilliance. What is next that she'll be doing and teaching and sharing and growing with?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm just, finished teaching, so I'm not really done the thoughts of, future. But I would like to, start teaching the educators and adults, that because that will not gonna, take up all my energies. Because 5 class, with a 4-year-old and then running after them is not really for me now anymore. So yeah, so and also I would like to make some kind of a if I could, that's my dream, to have a book to utilize the Dalcroze method to the piano teaching.
Oh, you should. You should definitely do that. Let me encourage you. There's so little contemporary writing for Dalcroze teachers that the space is open. It's wide open. If you would just get it written down, I think people would be really interested in it.
And come talk about it at the VDM.
Yep, absolutely. We will encourage you, and we'll help publicize your book.
Yeah, I need help, a lot of help.
Stephen is the guy to talk to, for
We'll
sure.
gladly help you with that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yuri, go. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like Deborah had a hand up, so I'll let Deborah go.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if Yoriko or Anthony could tell us some of their favorite activities that they've done.
Anybody have a
In a class setting? Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, I can, I've got so many that that kind of come to mind, but it's hard because I always kind of feel like so my favorite one is probably always like the latest one that I came up with, it's like, because I just always enjoy my favorite thing. Anyone who knows about my teaching has been paying attention to it, knows that like my favorite thing is actually like the discovery of some new concept or idea that's like, and so like this last week I did this whole spiel. It was called, What Are We Doing on Summer Vacation? And the idea was just ask the children, what do you like to do on summer vacation? And they would come up with something that they like to do. Like the one would say like, oh, I like to go swimming. And so we said, oh, well, what's that motion like? And we would start with the motion of swimming. And no, I like that. And what do you like to do? And they're like, oh, I like to toss a ball. And so we would pretend we were tossing a ball. And I forget what a lot of them were. They was brilliant. They come up with amazing things. Sailing. So we pulled up the sails and we did a big pantomime thing of all these different movements. And then I started to put them to motion. There was like a diving one, or there was building a sandcastle was one. So we built the sandcastle up and we put a flag on top. And that one was like, that was our sandcastle motion. We could do that. You can try that one. That was our sandcastle on top, the flag on top. And then we had like, when we do swimming, and then, so we would then set them to music. And then I had a song, see if I can even remember it. I came up with it in the moment. It was like, summer vacation, what do you do on summer vacation? This one. That was the song. And so then after we sang the song, then I would play one of the motions, and I would play. And they had to respond, and then I had them, hey, why don't you show me your, why don't you pick the motion? When we get there, you do the motion and we'll follow you. And so it's like this little improvisation composition thing with the song and the motions and the various sort of sounds that they create. And that was what we did last week. And, they just had a blast with it. They got to be creative. They got to play with the feelings in their bodies. They got to imagine being on summer vacation. They sang and they moved, they improvised, they composed. Then we would go and, we would move on from there. So, and that was just something that kind of came up organically by me asking them what they like to do on summer vacation. And that to me is the most satisfying thing, is that like genesis of it. And I might never ever do that lesson again, but it's a cool sort of, when you start to see it come together, you're like, oh, that really worked. So anyway.
Anthony should put his Substack link in the chat. Anybody ever looking for exercise ideas, lesson ideas? That's kind of Anthony's big thing. He's got a whole library that he's constantly adding to, and we are excited to help publicize that. So yeah, Joe just wrote in the chat, the way that Anthony's describing lets the students know that their own lives and feelings are worthy of art and creativity. And that I think of as very Dalcrozian. And so this idea that the baseline for any of our Dalcroze work is that, well, you are musical, obviously. It's never a question. There's no concern that every student in the room wouldn't be able to feel music. Of course they can feel music. They maybe haven't yet. Maybe they have no technique. They haven't any literacy. They've not been in this space before. Maybe, maybe we need to help them find it, but it's not like anybody questions whether everybody's able. And so what Anthony's describing is it's just a way of getting them to show anything. Show me something. Show me what you got. And I'll help show you how that is music or how that can be music. And so the student comes up with an idea. He validates the idea lets us all do the idea, maybe in silence, maybe it's just gesture. And then at some point he's at the piano or he's singing or he's at the drum or he's at the whatever. And all of a sudden music comes out of this thing that the student came up with on their own. And so it's as though the music was already there and he's just sort of demonstrating it. And that philosophy, that you are musical, music is already in the room, and of course you are capable of it. And you're worthy of my time, the adult, to follow you. All of that to me is deep in the Dalcroze pedagogy. And so, I'm really, thank you, Joe, for pointing it out, and thanks, Anthony, for sharing one.
Yoriko, do you want to share a favorite activity?
Well, I teach on a music school, so I have the class divided by the ages group. So the certain age, do want to do something, to a certain age. So what I found was I usually use a paper to color, and then has a notes in it, and then the age group of like 4 and 5, they love coloring. And then they so while they're coloring, I do the solfege, because when they're, when I do the, okay, what color is your walk or quarter note, and then they will sing it in that matching note, so they can do the matching with my voice, or so those kind of thing they love to do. So, and then also it give me a time to rest too. Because 10 kids in the class, and then by myself, in order to make sure I can see other students are doing, you need that kind of a situation, and then luckily they love it.
Well, something that's really interesting about you working on singing and matching pitch is that you gave them something else to do, which takes the pressure off of the matching and the solo, because I can feel my 5 and 6-year-olds sometimes get nervous when we just do like little hello, like as a little solo, or just to like match something that I might send. So I'm just really interested by your idea of giving them a different job and kind of letting them think that the game is to color, right? But I guess my question is, how do you keep them from talking? Because as soon as I hand my kids colored pencils and paper, they're just gonna be like, I want red. Oh, I'm doing this. Blah blah blah. Did you know this today at school? Blah, blah. Like they just think it's like fun time, recess time, not we're also gonna do an activity. So maybe, I don't know. Did you just train them that coloring is also be quiet and listen to me sing and sing back?
No, they just naturally do it because they love doing, they always request, can I color, the age group. Yes. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Other thoughts about things that have been shared or questions that we can put to our guests or just to discuss amongst ourselves? Yuriko, will you tell us a little bit more about your the school, the preparatory school that you're in? How much of what you're teaching is following outside curriculum, and how much of it is just up to you? Is there a general curriculum that the whole school is following, or not?
No, not really. I mean, because it's a early childhood that they are not requiring too much musicianship skills, but they're totally ahead because of my class, because they know how to read it already. But they don't teach 4 or 5 years old to really read, but the confidence that they can get from just reading, having fun, and then reading. Of course they like playing the balls. That's another thing that they love to do. You already saw in my classes, and then oh yeah, if there's a ball, then they want to do something with the ball. So especially when there's more boys in the class, they love to do that. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about a ball activity? Any ways that you use? You're showing kind of, looks to me like a large ball.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what do you do? Do you have
larger ball is easier for them to handle, but when you get older, they can handle the small one. I cannot even handle one. So the bounce on the accent, or and actually do the time signature with that, and then figure out what time signature they're moving to. Yeah, so still that's the only level right now, because they get to do only 2 years of Dalcroze. I don't know, I have 5 classes, but somehow they come in a different, age, not from 4 years old, sometimes coming in at 6 years, and then you get the 2 years, and just off they go. So I have to, do a more basics these days. Before I had like 7 classes of different levels, and I had a chance to do the teaching a composition and improvisation on the piano, but there's no time now, unfortunately. Yeah,
It's very good.
I had something maybe to crowdsource an issue I've got with these kind of teaching situations, and maybe Yuriko's got some ideas too. But occasionally, like a teacher or an ensemble director will come to me and say, "Hey, well, the students are having trouble with this passage here of this song that's got these whatever. It's got a weird meter change in it. I wonder if you might be able to practice this with them." And like, I've been pretty resistant to it. Like, I haven't really found it to be a really great way for me to I haven't found it to be particularly helpful. Like that's going to solve the problem, and I don't, to be frank, I find it a little insulting, but I wonder if anybody's got any thoughts about that. Like, is this, like, are we just here to coach up the kids to get them ready for the only thing that matters, which is their, ensemble or their piano lesson? Is that really what it's about? Or are we bringing something unique to the table that offers a unique piece to their musicianship? So I've kind of like, then I want to go to the teacher and be like, hey, no, they're really having trouble clapping 2 against 3. Do you think you could take some of your time in ensemble and get them to practice clapping 2 against 3? I wonder if maybe you might do that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if that's like a tension that you feel in your program or not, but in mine, not so much at Carnegie Mellon, but definitely at Interlochen, that's like the people don't quite get what it is that I do, and they think that I'm just going to be like an extra coaching for their kids to like understand what it means to be in 7/8 time, and it's just like, that's not really what I do, man. But I don't know what you think about that.
actually, Yeah.
Oh, good.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I was had a chance to teach actually the ensemble, the string ensemble in quartet, and then they were pre-college kids, but it's really super virtuoso people that but they are having problem because there was no conductor. So they have no, the classical training, because I had some jazz training too. So classical training, you don't really have that much beat feeling. So the Dalcroze have that so much on the beat. If there's a beat, you can keep the beat, you can put the rhythm, any rhythm in it, so that I worked with this for musicians and for half an hour. And then I try to, to let them move, and then after half an hour, they were amazed how much they can play together now in a half an hour. So they, I thought it was, oh, Dalcroze is miracle, because what they start to do it. Oh, I didn't know the 16th note was this kind, they just read it, that was a 16th note. But I don't know, I can't remember what kind of exercise I did, but the 16th note made it so real to one person, and the one person, so they start to really feel the oneness, to really have that beat going so they can play together. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah, so I think it's not just for that, but because they can listen more, because I think the Dalcroze training is more like a ear training. Because how much you can hear, how much you can match with the other person, and then so how much you can express through that. So we need that kind of depth of understanding of music too.
Very good. Joe, I saw you had a hand up.
There we go. In that thought, Anthony, I'm reminded of a quotation that I've known for years, and I just saw again the other day at a healthy restaurant that said, "Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food." And that when it's a great compliment when people come to us and ask us to cure a problem that they can't cure, because it speaks of a shortcoming within their method and a need that our work, whatever it is fulfilling. And it can also become a way in more and more to promote that if this is solving problems, maybe it should have been there beforehand. Because I think that Dalcroze is a part of getting to understand music, even as just like we are doing without numbers, is you get to know music before you learn all the words for it, instead of learning all the words for it before you've actually known music. Like, every child should have a dog before they become a veterinarian for dogs and learn dogs anatomy. They should know what it is to cuddle one and play with one and run with one, before they become a veterinarian for one. And I think that it's really a great compliment, though it could feel backhanded, but it means something they don't.
No, you're right. To use it as a jumping off point for advocacy, I mean, I can see that. I should probably not be so bitter about it, but
Well, I have a thought also, because I know what you mean, and at the same time, like I have a friend, Elizabeth, my pianist that I play with. She just finished her certificate, and she's been working for over 10 years at a choir school, teaching musicianship and using Dalcroze as much as she can there. And these kids are like in choir rehearsal every day for hours. And she taught them a lesson about a 7/8, like 5 or 6 years ago. And she taught, like, I think the entire school the system of like circle, circle, triangle, triangle. And those are their words. And now it is part of their rehearsal. And um, the kind of the she I think maybe she was asked to address this problem, or she knew that they were working on this big piece with a lot of kind of changing mixed meter stuff, and she created this lesson to help the students, but it is now part of that school's culture. And so the opportunity I see is for you to maybe teach 7/8 without numbers. How fabulous would that be? Um, and give them an expression of it, and like all the things that you care about, like finding freedom. Like, can you teach a lesson about like finding freedom and feeling the pattern, and you just happen to be in 7/8 that day for all of your improv, like I think there are very sneaky ways that you can put in 7/8 or whatever the problem is, and still reach all of your goals that are important. You don't even have to tell the kids that you worked on 7/8. Like, it just, I don't know. I'd be curious how that approach might even like begin to address those things without the students needing to know what it is that they're doing.
Yeah, I always find it a little bit of a scary challenge when someone comes to me out of the blue and does exactly that. I think any of us who have taught this kind of work for very long, you're likely to bump into somebody who will do exactly what Anthony's doing. I don't normally like. I can see how in some cases I also know those people who don't know what I do and make brash judgments about what's happening in that room, which can sometimes feel jarring. And then other times, I think they think the opposite. They think I'm some sort of magic worker, and with just like 20 minutes, and I'll everything will be perfect. That's actually kind of equally frustrating or bothersome. At the university level, there have been times over the years where certain studio teachers will hunt me out and say, "Man, so and so student is really struggling with X. Can you fix them?" And a lot of the time it's like you can't fix them in 3 weeks. Like, I can coach them on certain things, and I'll gladly find some extra time to maybe one-on-one, but probably some of what they're dealing with is more systemic. It's deeper. It's going to take time. And that's what my coursework is about, is putting together the time where people can grow, but we can't make people grow quickly. It's a great prompt. It's totally worth thinking about. I like that we're able to sort of see all the edges of that. We still have 9 minutes tonight. Yes, Veronica.
Okay. I just really want to talk about this topic because it's a lot of what I do, and not a lot of people are doing it, I feel, which is teaching Dalcroze to kids who are older than age 8 and building pathways for them to participate in a Dalcroze musicianship class ages 8 to 12, or kind of what Emma's pushing along with her students is 8 to 18. Like, it's like this missing chunk. We just all of a sudden are like, oh, you're older now. You can sit still, so go sit still. No more Dalcroze for you. And it's not only that, like, we know that there's things we can do and we can think of as Dalcroze teachers what we want to teach, but it's really important to be strategic about the structure within which this will take place. And so the reason I just want to talk a little bit about the structure is because I'm hoping that, like, maybe somebody will watch this video, or someone is here already, and we can be like talking about maybe other structures or other things that people are doing, or hopefully inspire more people to stop thinking that after age 8 there's no way we can get them in Dalcroze anymore. Yeah. Until they get to Stephen's class at age 18, like, yeah, or when we're seniors teaching seniors, like, so I think the strategy of it is that there has to be kind of what's worked really well for us at Integral Steps is levels, kind of like Suzuki. You finish a book, you move on to the next book. And so we have rhythmic solfege 1, rhythmic solfege all the way to 5. There's like 5 years. They take a little exit evaluation. It's kind of like a juried eurythmics and solfege exam, and they feel the like pressure of preparing something that's not creative, whatever. Do your own thing for the recital. Like, it's this thing, you're responsible for it. You graduate. Mostly they all pass unless they really don't practice. It's like a pass or redo situation, so no one gets graded, but they get a certificate. They move on to the next level, and we've worked really hard to create this culture where families expect that what their children are going to do is take an hour-long Dalcroze class and a half-hour or 45 or 60-minute private lesson every week. And that is what we do. And there are other programs, like other community music schools, like, that have set up kind of a similar requirement. Suzuki World is pretty famous for that, right? Private lesson plus your group class. And so but it takes a lot of work to create that culture, to start kids young.
I think
I tried to get my 10 and 12-year-olds who were my private students into this track. It did not work. Like the only success I've had was starting with kids ages 3 to 6 and like growing them from there with that expectation that we have. Maybe we start with a 45-minute Dalcroze class and a 15-minute private lesson. And then like we just say, this is what we're going to do next. And we have a plan for you for next year. And we see ourselves working with your children for 10 and 15 years. And we want to be here for your children. Like we try to say that, and we try to like help families feel part of that program. So
I think that word culture is a really big deal. I mean, that's really, you know, as you set up the expectation and you standardize it or you normalize it is what I want to say. You know, as it becomes normalized, then of course anything is possible. But getting that going is a real, you know, can be a real challenge. I saw Anthony and I think Joe and maybe Dawn had a hand. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, so I mean, just to zoom out a little bit too, I mean, just to think about the way, at least in America, it works is, you know, children of that age, they don't really take any kind of general music, and let's lump Dalcroze into a general music sort of class. There's just, I mean, how many kids in high school actually take a general music class? Like zero. Like how many? Like, you know, like very, very few. And even if they're in, the focus is all on the achievement on the instrument or on their specialty area, and there's just a big neglect in, you know, among adolescents and teenagers for to have any kind of general music culture, and until they get to the university. And I mean, imagine how much better they would be prepared for the university too if they had, like, you know, well-rounded background in it. So I think it's if you zoom out from just Dalcroze, you can see there's a big gap in the whole sector there of the culture too. That's all I wanted to say.
Joe?
I'm thinking of two situations where you have children that are arriving at that age that have been doing Dalcroze, but you also have this possibility of children arriving who are at that stage of motor development and social development, who have not had Dalcroze, still need to learn initial music principles with their bodies. And so they're like, I'm seeing two different branches of this in my mind.
Yeah,
and
I don't think those two students are good in class together, right? Like the newbies are not gonna, it'll be too stressful as a teacher to have them together.
That may very well be, though you may find that there are principles that, because they're universal, are worthy of repetition as if, you know, movement scales, you know, for the body, repetition of development and re-encountering of the same, recreation of principles. But I've noticed that in the Dalcroze conferences that I've been to lately, you know, these couple that I've been to, is that there is this attention on how are we going to teach the little ones. I have seen a lot of that and not much, okay, 10-year-olds, let's go. And so I think there is some room for development of what that even is, to communicate with bodies at a different level of social and physical development.
Well, this seems like a good topic for an upcoming meetup. So we'll have to make sure we plan that and put it in. We got about 2 minutes. Anybody got one more?
Dawn, right?
No, actually, I think I jumped. I'm not sure that Dawn had a question tonight.
I didn't have my hand up or anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw a glimmer
I'm
in your
enjoying
eye.
the conversation a lot. It's really interesting, and I think it's a great topic for a future VDM. Yeah, I loved working with my middle school students in so many ways. You know, they had that kind of, can we do what we used to do in 3rd grade kind of thing? You know, they part of them really wanted to move, even though they were a little inhibited. That's kind of what you're talking about. You're talking about what do we do after age 8 and how do we keep this going? And I like what Veronica said, you know, now it's time to sit down and do music. Now it's time to sit down and do music theory. You know, those days are over. Not
the Ian Tam has a connection to Yuriko and is one of my students from Carnegie Mellon. While you're in the room, Ian, and I got you pegged here. Ian just finished his final examinations and is kicking back and just been sleeping, I'm sure, and just nonstop recovering. Yeah, Ian, you want to tell us how was it were you doing any kind of music and movement in the years before you got to CMU?
No, actually, I was not doing anything like that. And so coming in my first year to Eurythmics, I was like what even is this? It was so like I don't know, I'd never heard of it, and it was so like surreal, but like after 2 years, I'm like can pretty confidently say that it's been probably one of the most formative and best musical experiences I've ever had.
I didn't
And
pay him to say
so
that. He's just
yeah.
the best. Yeah. So I mean, we know those of us who've done the work. I think we all recognize that there's a lot of value here for all ages. And then there are these wonderful questions that I think the ages have been asking. How do we get the next group that just isn't doing it right now? How can we get them going? And the word culture that Veronica said a couple times was the first word that I was thinking of when she was saying, how can we get the new group? It's not that hard to invent the exercises that work with absolutely any age. It is a challenge to establish new routines for anybody. If the routine didn't exist, and now we would like the routine to exist, there's some real challenges there. Creating the culture for it is a big deal. And maybe that'll be the title of an upcoming meetup, establishing a Dalcroze culture in your school. And we can talk about that. Well, friends, as has been the case for nearly 72 meetups, there's always more we could talk about. And we're happy to leave it open-ended and leave you wanting more with the hope that you'll come back. I really want to thank Yuriko. It's been so lovely just meeting you a little bit over the Zoom tonight. And I hope that we will be able to tempt you to come back and share with us more about what you do. And if we can encourage you to write your book, we'd like to help you with that as well. Anthony, as always, you're just one of our very favorites. Everybody subscribe to his Substack if you haven't. There's a million good ideas there, and he's just so amazing with the way he keeps it populated. And for the rest of my friends, almost everybody here we know very well, and it's just great to see you. Our next meetup isn't until early June, so catch your breath for a couple of weeks, but come back to that one. And then if you haven't signed up for Tame's masterclass, I'm telling you, this is a teacher you'd like to meet. She's dynamic and she's smart, and just so much fun. So, and there'll be a lot of movement, I'm sure. This is going to be it's not going to be a sit and talk thing. She's going to have us moving around in our Zoom windows. I'm really quite sure. And with that, thanks, Veronica. Thanks all.
Hey, everybody. Really great to see you all.
Have a good night.
Thank you.